Welcome to the Fishbowl Radio, everybody. My name is Chief here, and joining me today is Jalen, and we got a special guest on this Raging Cajun podcast here, Juicy. How y'all fellas doing today?
Oh, we're fantastic, man. Of life.
Hey, I'm doing well, Chief Juicy. Nice for you to join us. Just another great day to be a Raging Cajun, as I always say.
Oh
It
yeah.
is so Cajuns earned the fifth seed in the Sun Belt Conference tournament, so that is something to kind of be interested in. They had a chance for the fourth seed, dropped the series to Arkansas State here, and there was a little bit of um talking about maybe Deggs getting canned after making the regional for 3 straight years, which he technically could still make it a fourth, win the conference tournament, and they would get an auto bid. So that dream is not dead as of this recording of this video right now. So the Cajuns are going to play tomorrow at 7:30 against Marshall. So Jalen, let's talk about this a little bit here. I'll bring in Juicy here a little bit later on here. But why do you think people were thinking about maybe getting rid of Dex? Because they were kind of saying oh, this should never happen. Is it unrealistic expectations that the Cajun fan base has, or is it something kind of different?
Uh, I wouldn't. I think it is something. Kind of. I wouldn't say it's unrealistic expectations because your expectations are you want to make the big dance every year. You want to make the NCAA tournament. That's just the goal for every team. But I think with the baseball team, Cajun baseball team, I think the biggest thing for them coming into this season was, hey, like Diggs has another year. They made it to the big dance. They ended up losing out last year, but they still like came back this year with some great pieces. I know they still lost Kyle DeBarge to the MLB. Still trying to replace him. They had to kind of mix it up this year when it came to pitching. But I think the reason I think that they say Deggs on the hot seat because they want to see this Cajuns baseball team make it further, and I can't blame them for losing that series against Southern Miss, but losing that series against Arkansas State, a team that was kind of at the bottom of the pack in the Sun Belt to end the regular season, and you're at home at the Teague, it's not a good momentum going into the Sun Belt tournament, which they could obviously still win. But I think that the way the baseball teams been playing this year, they've been kind of up and down. They were kind of had a win streak, they had a losing streak, kind of back and forth. I think they're really calling for Diggs because they want to see this team go greater than reaching just the beginning part of these series. And I think if the Cajuns are able to advance further this year, I think that's definitely going to help them with job security.
So to kind of piggyback off of what you're saying a little bit here, I do think there is a little bit of unrealistic expectations because they've had a couple of people say that the Cajuns are a top 30 baseball program. And I disagree with that because let's
I'm not too
let's
sure
let's look
about
at
that.
let's look at the numbers here basically.
But the
Because
numbers talk for themselves.
yeah. So to be a top 30 baseball program, you would have to have in my head would have to be 8 or more super regional appearances, which the Cajuns do not have. Um, which so granted, the super regionals only been around since '99, and there's 26-year history of the super regionals, which will be played, after this week. I mean not after this week, like 2 weeks, 3 weeks down the road. You will have that opportunity there. But so you're gonna have 26. We have 26 years of data just to kind of back up and make 8 of them. I think is being very generous to being a top 30 something program because that would show consistency over a 26-year period, which is that's almost like 33%. I'm not a math whiz, but it's like around a little bit higher than 33% of the time that you got out regionals, basically, which I think is a very good number. I mean, it sounds a pretty solid program, honestly, with that. But if you look at the Cajuns' super regional appearances, not talking about them winning it, because they only did it one time, and that was back in 2000,
2000.
obviously. And we've been kind of riding that. We've been kind of riding that. I saw Dave. I watched. I will actually listen to Dave Schultz's podcast, and he made this reference, and I agree with a lot what he said there. Because the notion that we're a top 30 program is completely false because If you look at it, 1999 made it to the Super Regionals, got knocked out by Rice. 2000 beat number one seeded South Carolina to go to Omaha. So that's two appearances right there. Then you take in the 2014 season. Ole Miss came to Lafayette and they ended up Ole Miss ended up advancing. 2015 went on the road and got knocked out there too. So that's the four appearances. Um, just off the top of my head, they haven't really had like the success wasn't sustained. And talking about, we're bringing up Tony Robichaux obviously because those years were in because Deggs hasn't made it to the Super yet. So bringing Tony up into this here, if you look at the last like his last three seasons of his tenure, 2017, 2018, 2019, the Cajuns did not make it to just a regional. So we were down for 3 years. And then, COVID happened 2020, which I don't really count against Dex because that wasn't really a first. I don't count that against anybody because it was just, we only played 17 games. A lot can happen, and the amount of like 60
It's
some games. And we didn't even get
it's
a third win
unfair
for the
to
season.
it's unfair to Diggs that Robichaux didn't even make it the last 3 years of his tenure. And then you expect Diggs to come in and all of a sudden have these high expectations. Like y'all ain't even made it to the NCAA tournament for 3 years in
Yeah.
a row. I mean, come on now.
Yeah. And then when you bring in 2021, Cajuns, the last, let's see, three seasons, 21 Degs didn't make it, 22, 23, and 24 Cajuns ended up going to the regionals those years. But I
Now
do
what's
now the fourth
oh,
year, like the actual fourth full season, which is this season, I always like to give coaches 4 years. I like the 4 year banter because it gives you a good range of what's going on there. So in that 4 year period, even if you drop 24 might have been the peak. We don't know how the roster situation was here, how it fluctuates. Because the weird thing now is the transfer portals are pulling guys out there. So the guys that may have like Kyle DeBarge was a big hit with the Cajuns last year, Sun Belt Player of the Year. And Jalen, you talked about trying to replace someone like that. You can't just like bring someone in just to kind of just replace them right then and there, especially the mid-major, because you just don't have the resources to bring in IL and all this other stuff involved in there. So that is something that we're gonna have to get accustomed to. This is not the same college landscape that it was when Tony Robichaux was a
I
baseball coach.
think I think a lot of UL fans look at the baseball program like 60 miles down the road from them, and they like get these huge expectations. And also Matt Diggs' success at Sam Houston State, taking them to super regionals twice over there, has kind of made them think that they can have all these high expectations over here at this different program now
But
too.
But even then, that's a whole different landscape we're talking about. So any talk we've had, but prior to, I think I would even say you could, I wouldn't even talk about anything prior to 2021 because the landscape is so completely different. It's almost comparing apples to oranges. Because if you have enough money, you literally could build a top tier program year in and year out. That's just the way it is. Um, like the big schools like LSU. I know you're mentioning LSU, Juicy, so we'll bring up LSU into this here a little
Talk
bit
about
because
McNeese, man. What you
LSU's got
talking
all the
about?
Baton Rouge and New Orleans have all the money in the state of Louisiana. That's just the
Oh
point.
no,
That's
man!
just
I was talking about McNeese, man. What you talking about?
but yeah, but look, I think the expectations of it, like I think we need to cool our jets a little bit and try to figure out how we fit in with this new era of baseball. Not even baseball, it's college athletics in general here. I know we like in football, and there's a lot of hype about Walker Howard and Shelton Sampson and that company like that. They're gonna be a really good duo from what I can see in the spring game. But Walker's a junior. Is he gonna stay 2 years at the Cajuns at the helm? He might because they gave him a shot, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's gonna stay there because I mean he's left LSU, left Ole Miss. Granted different situations for different things there,
He's gotta learn to leave the coach's girlfriend alone. I mean, daughter
but
alone.
yeah, like that's just part of it there. So that that situation there, There's different things there. So that's something we're gonna have to look at as we go forward. Where do mid majors fit into this NIL realm? And I don't think I like the answer at the end of the decade because the way I see the TV contracts expiring and stuff, and I've mentioned this a couple of times. If you've been following the Fishbowl Radio, we have dug deep into this here. It seems like there's going to be a G5 playoff at some point because I just don't see financially where the money like they're cutting smaller like programs now. Like there was an AP article that we shared earlier that Kirby Smart even mentioned it too, that they're going to start cutting things to get into this to compete. So I feel bad for everybody that wants to go either do like swimming or gymnastics or these other schools that are not, I mean, other programs that are not participating here, which hurts schools like UL because water skiing is the most dominant sport that we have. But to take away like the as a whole for a top 30 program, if we have any top 30 program, it's softball. There's no argument that you could make that say that softball is not a top 30 program because in the whole entire country. Now, like I said before, I wouldn't take it past 21 because we're in a whole different era. So I know that I'm using old references, but if we're going to try to use that argument, the softball program has been to OKC multiple times. And they have been in the NCAA tournament since 98 every single year, except for this year. So that's
Been
my
the
spiel on it. What you think, Juicy?
what I think about which one? The
Like the whole expectation thing.
well, like I kind of reiterate how I was kind of like add on to what I was saying earlier about how I just think that it's a part of it is like it's a combination of Matt Diggs' success. Like I said, it's Sam Houston State. People seen that. Uh, the the program 60 miles down the road, of course, in case anybody's wondering about LSU. And then
Gonna
also, I
call
think
you that school across the basin kind of thing.
you mentioned you mentioned also
PSAB.
the the post COVID era, the NIL era, that has a lot to do with it. The culture, just everybody's want this win now, instant. It's this new culture in college sports too that's taken over, not just in baseball, but in all sports. It's just a snowball effect, and everybody's just trying to these little schools are trying to catch up and play catch up with these bigger schools, and it's just much harder. But people see the success so close to them that they just it's not completely. I guess it's not their fault, but I guess it's just at the same time. I mean, but as a coach though, Matt Diggs has to learn how to. I mean, catch up and uh, be on his toes and always trying to play the portal real well, even though he might not have quite as much funding and access to it.
Yeah, like looking ahead to this Sun Belt Conference tournament, they're gonna take on Marshall here. So 7:30, like I mentioned earlier. How do you approach this, Jalen? Do you bring out your ace tomorrow? What or what you doing? You like I'll ask both y'all that. Are you pitching your ace tomorrow and Chase Morgan or what?
I think you should.
Going with the ace tomorrow? What you thinking,
I think you should
Juicy?
go with the ace because I think it's a tone setter.
Okay. What about you, Juicy? You pitching Chase Morgan or you going to rely on your number two guy?
Oh, I think I'm with Jalen, man. Honestly, if you're trying to play to get in the tournament because you're not secure about a guaranteed spot without winning the tournament, I think you just go with your number one guy, like Jalen said, and he's he number one guy is always a tone setter. I mean, he more times than not he sets how it's gonna go, and you got to get wins whenever you can. So just throw him out there, and then and then it's Godspeed after that.
I mean, it is a double elimination, so if you do fumble, you do have that second opportunity.
Oh,
Um,
I didn't realize the Sun Belt was double
yeah, yes,
elimination.
yes, there's a double elimination to Sunbelt, Juicy. Um, So does that change your factor a little bit or what?
Not really. I still think you gotta just set the tone. Honestly, you get that first win, you get in the winners bracket at least.
Agents have not played Marshall this year in baseball, uh, in a series. So this is gonna be interesting to see. They did win 8-6 here. So looking at the Cajuns' road record, just to kind of like just to give some like they're 4-6 in the last 10 here. Cajuns are better at home, 18-15, than they're on the road, 8-14. So they they need to do better on the road, obviously. I think that's part of it, obviously. They lost their last three on the roads, but that was Southern Miss they played, so that's kind of expected.
Who's
I
probably hosting a regional?
Yeah, uh, it's just gonna be, but their last three games prior to that with Georgia State, they won, they swept them. Trying to find a team that's comparable to Marshall and RPI, and that is Old Dominion that the Cajuns have played there at 115. Texas State's right there, actually a better match at 108, and they lost that one, but that was way back in April. Teams change a lot in baseball, so it's kind of hard with my prediction here. I'm gonna go. I think the Cajuns actually beat Marshall on Thursday. What you think, Jalen?
Yeah, I also think the Cajuns are gonna beat Marshall, and I think it's an advantage when you're playing against a team that you haven't played against in the season because I mean, yeah, the downside is you haven't played them, but the upside is they haven't played you either, so it's kind of a great matchup.
What you think, Juicy?
Yeah, I think Jalen hit him on point. I think UL should beat Marshall. You know, it's that's all I'm gonna say. I think they should win. Should win. Should is always a big
Yeah.
word.
So if the Cajuns do win, they'll be taking on the winner between Coastal Carolina and to be decided actually. But that's being played right now at Georgia Southern, Arkansas State. Looking like Georgia Southern's going to win. So if we pencil them there, we don't put ink yet because it ain't official. Um, so if Georgia Southern beats or Georgia Southern ends up holding it all, Arkansas State, Coastal and Georgia Southern, probably Coastal will win. They'll probably end up facing Coastal in that game if I had to make predictions on that one. So that's game six, and they'll end up playing the number one seed Coastal here. If I had to pick out the teams I think that's gonna win this tournament, I do think it's gonna be Southern Miss or Coastal. But I'm gonna go with Southern Miss. Who do you think, Jalen?
Yeah, I think Southern Miss also, and I think Southern Miss, especially for the last going into last season where they were also one of the top teams in the Sun Belt, and they come right back and do it again as being one of the top teams. I think Southern Miss is going to be right there at the top.
What you think, Juicy?
Southern Miss. I think Coastal will come in at a close second behind them, but I think Southern Miss is going to win this. They've been the best team in the Sun Belt, I think, most of the year.
All right, thank y'all for tuning in here to this episode here of the Fishbowl Sports Radio. We're gonna see you here next time on Fishbowl Radio. Have a good night, Fishbowl Nation.
Good night.